This is going to be the detailed summary of the story, The Beggar. Kind sir, have pity. Turn your attention to a poor hungry man. For 3 days I have had nothing to eat. I haven't 5 kopecks for a lodging. I swear it before God. For 8 years I was a village school teacher, and I lost my place through intrigues. I fell a victim to calumny. It is a year now since I have had anything to do. So here there is a description of a man who was begging alms. He said that he had not eaten anything for the past 3 days, and he did not even have 5 kopecks to pay for a room to spend the night. He swore by God that he spoke the truth, and he says he was a school teacher in a village for around 8 years, but due to the conspiracy of his colleagues, he lost his job. And for the last 1 year, he was without work, and now he is begging alms. So that is what the man says. Okay? Now, the advocate Sergi looked at the ragged fawn colored overcoat of the suppliant, at his dull drunken eyes, at the red spot on either cheek, and it seemed to him as if he had seen this man somewhere before. So there is an advocate named Sergi. Now this man begs alms to the Sergi, and he looks at him and he says that he is wearing a light brown colored coat. He looks at the coat of the beggar. He had very dull eyes, dull drunken eyes, and there were red spots on both his cheeks. And Sergi felt that he had seen this man somewhere before. That is what the Sergi feels. Now, I have now had an offer of a position in the province of Kaluga. The mendicant went on. But I haven't the money to get there. Help me kindly. I am ashamed to ask, but I am obliged to by my circumstances. So, mendicant means beggar. It is another word for beggar. So, he is saying that he had got an offer of a job in the state of Kaluga in Russia, but he didn't have enough money to travel to that place, and so he wanted some help. Though he is ashamed to ask or beg for alms, he is in need of help, and so his circumstances forced him to beg for alms. Sergi's eyes fell on the man's overshoes, one of which was high and the other low, and he suddenly remembered something. So, Sergi saw the man's shoes, and both of them had varying heel sizes. So, this made him remember something. Look, here it seems to me. I met you the day before yesterday in the Sadovia street, he said. But you told me that you were a student who had been expelled and not a village school teacher. Do you remember? Now, this Sergi, he says that the day before the previous day, we both had met at the Sadovia street, but at that time you told me that you were a student who was removed from the institution and not a school teacher. And now he is asking the beggar if he remembers that incident. That means they met the previous day, and at that time this beggar, he said that he was a school boy who was expelled from the institution, and now he comes again to this place, to this surgeon's house, and to the surgeon's house, and he is now saying that he was a school teacher. So he is telling a lie. So the man or the surgeon, he points out to this instance. No, that can't be so, mumbled the beggar, taken aback. I'm a village school teacher, and if you like, I can show you my papers. Now the beggar was very shocked, and he spoke softly that he was a school teacher, and if he wanted, if the surgeon wanted, he could show him the school papers as proof. Have done with lying. You call yourself a student and even told me what you had been expelled for. Do you remember? So now he is saying, no, you are lying. he even added that the beggar had told him that he was a student, and even you told me the reason why you were expelled from the institution. So you are lying to me. You told me before that you were a student who was expelled, and you even told me the reason why you were expelled, and now how dare you come to me and say that you are a school teacher. Sergi flushed and turned from the ragged creature with an expression of disgust. So disgust means a feeling of revulsion or strong disapproval aroused by something unpleasant or something offensive. Okay. Now this means Sergi was full of anger and he turned away from the beggar. This is dishonesty, my dear sir, he cried angrily. This is swindling. I shall send the police for you. Damn you. So swindling means actually cheating a person of money. So he screamed that the beggar was dishonest and he was a cheat, and Sergi would hand him over to the police. Sir, he said, laying his hands on his heart, the fact is I was lying. I am neither a student nor a school teacher. All that was a fiction. Formerly, I sang in a Russian car and was sent away from drunkenness. But what else can I do? I get along without lying. No one will give me anything. When I tell the truth, what can I do? So the beggar now confesses the truth that he was lying. He says he was neither a school teacher. He's neither a school teacher nor a student, but he had been a singer in the Russian group and was removed due to his drinking problem. And he says he lied because if he didn't say such lies, nobody would give him alms, or if he said the truth, he wouldn't get alms from anyone. What can you do? You ask what you can do, cried Sergi, coming close to him. Work, that's what you can do. You must work. So Sergi screamed at him and he said that instead of lying, he could work. Work? Yes, I know that myself. But where can I find work? Yeah, I know that work is something that I can do, but where can I find work? And how would you like to chop wood for me? So Sergi is now asking him, okay, I'll give you some work, chop the woods for me. I wouldn't refuse to do that, but in these days, even skilled woodcutters find themselves sitting without bread. So the beggar says that is a good idea, but even skilled woodcutters are sitting without bread, or even they are not getting enough job and they are not even getting paid. So in such a circumstance, if I go for wood cutting, who is going to pay me, or where am I going to get a job? Will you come and chop wood for me? Yes, sir, I will. Very well. We'll soon find out. Sergi hastened along, rubbing his hands. He called to his cook out of the kitchen. So he says, okay, then do one thing, cut the wood for me, and then he calls out to his cook, and she comes and takes him. Okay. Sergi said that he is willing to give him job if this beggar was willing to work, and so rubbed his hands and he went to the kitchen to search the cook. Here, Olga, he said, take this gentleman into the woodshed and let him chop the wood. So he asked his cook Olga to take this man to the shed and make him chop the woods. The scarecrow of a beggar shrugged his shoulders as if perplexity and went irresolutely after the cook. It was obvious from his guide that he had not consented to go and chop woods because he was hungry and wanted to work, but simply from pride and shame, and because he had been trapped by his own words. It was obvious too that his strength had been undermined by vodka and that he was unhealthy and did not feel the slightest inclination for toil. Perplexity means the state of being puzzled, okay? Or we can say bewilderment, that is perplexity. So the beggar, he resembled a scarecrow and he was reluctant to go to the shed, but he had to follow the cook hesitantly, and he was hesitant because he was hungry, and although he wanted to work, he did not feel energetic enough to do the work, but he had promised that he would work, so he had to somehow go and work, so he was forced to go. He didn't feel strong enough because he was under the influence of alcohol and was not fit to do laborious work. Sergi hurried into the dining room. From its window one could see the woodshed and everything that went on in the yard. Standing At the window, Sergei saw the cook and the beggar come out into the yard by the back door and make their way across the dirty snow to the shed. Olga glared wrathfully at her companion, showed him aside with her elbow, unlocked the shed, and angrily banged the door. So Sergei he went into the dining room to look outside the window from where he could see the woodshed and the yard. He saw that the cook and the beggar they were in the yard. They walked to the shed. The cook Olga started at the beggar. Stared at the beggar angrily, and she pushed him with her elbows and shut the door of the woodshed. Next, he saw the pseudo teacher seat himself on a log and become lost in thought with his red cheeks resting on his fist. The woman flung down an axe at his feet, spat angrily, and judging from the expression of her lips, began to scold him. The beggar irresolutely pulled a billet of wood towards him, set it up between his feet, and tapped it feebly with the axe. The billet wavered and fell down. The beggar again pulled it to him, blew out his freezing hands, and tapped it with the axe cautiously, as if afraid of hitting his overshoe or of cutting off his finger. The stick of wood again fell to the ground. So the beggar who had lied that he was a teacher, he now sat on the log of the wood and his cheeks were resting on his fist. But the cook Olga, she threw the axe towards him and she scolded him and forced him to work. So the beggar pulled a piece of wood and carefully he started chopping the woods. He pulled it again and again, and he was very careful not to hurt his fingers or hurt his shoes. Sergei's anger had vanished, and he now began to feel a little sorry and ashamed of himself for having set a spoiled, drunk, and perhaps sick man to work at menial labor in the cold. Now, Sergei was not angry at the beggar, but he felt a bit ashamed because a poor man was put to work in such pathetic condition, like cold weather and all those things. So, and the man he was not fit enough to do the labor, and it was very cold also. So, in such a condition, the man was forced to work. So, Sergei felt a little sad about it. An hour later, Olga came in and announced that the wood had been chopped. Good, give him half a ruble, said Sergei. If he wanted to, he can come back and cut the wood on the first day of each month. We can always find work for him. So Sergei was glad, and he said that, okay, since he has done the work, pay him half a ruble. And he also told that let him come on first day of every month to cut the woods, and we would give him some work and he would be paid. On the first of the month, the waif made his appearance and again earned a half ruble, although he could barely stand on his legs. From that day on, he often appeared in the yard, and every time work was found for him. Now he would shovel snow, now put the woodshed in order, now beat the dust out of the rugs and mattresses. Every time he received from 20 to 40 kopecks, and once even a pair of old trousers were sent out to him. So the beggar turned up on the first of the month and got half a ruble, although he was heavily drunk and could not even stand on his own feet. He went there for work very often, and he did various jobs like shoveling the snow, setting the wood in the shed, beating the rugs to remove the dust, and all such jobs, and he earned 20 to 40 kopecks for it. And he even received a pair of trousers also. When Sergei moved into another house, he hired him to help in packing and holding of the furniture. This time, the waif was sober, gloomy, and silent. He hardly touched the furniture and walked behind the wagons, hanging his head, not even making a pretense of appearing busy. He only shivered in the cold and became embraced when the carters jeered at him for his idleness, his feebleness, and his tattered fancy overcoat. After the moving was over, Sergei sent for him. Now, Sergei was shifting to another house, and so he hired the beggar to help him in moving all the articles, furnitures and all. But the man was not under the influence of alcohol at that time, but still he was very sad and he remained very quiet. He hardly took part in moving the furniture. He simply walked behind the vans with his head hanging low, and he did not even pretend to be busy. He shivered because of the cold weather and seemed very embarrassed when other workers made fun of him because he was very idle and very weak, and they even laughed at his torn overcoat. When the work was completed, Sergey called the beggar. Well, I am happy that my words have taken effect, he said, handing him a ruble. Here's for your pains. I see you are sober and have no objection to work. What's your name? So, Sergey said that he was happy to see the change in the beggar due to his scoldings, and he gave him a ruble for his labor, and then he asked him his name. And he was also happy because this man had now left drinking and he was willing to work. Lushkov. So Lushkov was the name of the beggar. Well, Lushkov, I can now offer you some other cleaner employment. Can you write? Now, Sergey wanted to offer him better work, so he asked him if he could write. I can. So that is what Lushkov says. He says that he can write. Then take this letter to a friend of mine tomorrow and you will be given some copying to do. Work hard, don't drink, and remember what I have said to you. Goodbye. So he said, okay, take this letter to a friend of mine tomorrow and you will be given some copying work to do. And work hard, don't drink alcohol from now, and remember what I have said to you. So saying so, he says goodbye. Now, Sergey handed him the letter to be delivered to a friend of his. Sergey's friend would give copying work to Lushkov. He instructed him to work hard and they parted. So, after giving the letter, they parted. So, Sergey tapped Lushkov kindly on the shoulders and he gave him his hand. Like he shook his hand and he said, you can show this letter to my friend and do your work properly and live a very good life. I am going, and saying so, he just parted. Now Sergey was happy that he had reformed the man. He tapped Lushkov on his shoulders and shook hands with him. Lushkov went away with the letter and never returned. So thus the man went and he never returned back. 2 years went by, and then one evening, as Sergey was standing at the ticket window of a theatre paying for his seat, he noticed this little man. He noticed a little man beside him with a coat and a collar of curly fur. So now he remembers, or he tries to recollect this man. So this was the old beggar whom he had helped years before. Now he also came to buy ticket and to be seated in the gallery. He paid for it in copper coins. After 2 years, so this happens after 2 years. Now Lushkov, is that you? Cried Sergey, recognizing in the little man his former wood chopper. How are you? What are you doing? How is everything with you? Now he is asking, oh my dear Lushkov, is that you? What are you doing? How are you? And all those questions he is asking. And Lushkov says, I am a notary now and am paid 35 rubles a month. So that is what he is doing now. So notary is a person authorized to perform certain legal formalities, especially like certify contracts, deeds and other documents for jurisdictions, and also he was now a notary. That is what he is saying. And Lushkov replied that he was fine and he got paid every month like 35 rubles. That was what he used to get every month. And thank heaven, that's fine. I am delighted for your sake. I am very, very glad, Lushkov. You see, you are my godson in a sense. I gave you a push along the right path, you know. Do you remember what a roasting I gave you? I nearly had you sinking into the ground at my feet that day. Thank you, old man, for not forgetting my words. So, he thanked God for reforming the beggar, and he said that though I scolded you, I wanted you to become a good man, and that now I am very happy you have changed yourself. Now he was glad that Lushkov did not forget his words. Thank you too, said Lushkov. If I hadn't come to you, then I might have still been calling myself a teacher or a student this day. Yes, by flying to your protection, I dragged myself out of a pit. I am very glad. So Lushkov, he thanks him back. He says, yeah, because of you, since you offered me the job and all, now that I am in such a position, otherwise I would still have to beg for ramps. I would still have told others that either I am a teacher or a student or something, some sort of lies like that, and I would have continued with begging. Thank you for your kind words and deeds. I am very grateful to you and to your cook. God bless that good and noble woman. You spoke finely then, and I shall be indebted to you to my dying day. But strictly speaking, it was your cook Olga who saved me. He says that I am very indebted to you. Like you showed kindness to me, and till the end of my life or till the last breath of my life, I will be remembering your kindness. But I am indebted to your cook Olga as well. When I used to come to your house, chop woods, she used to begin, "Oh, you sot, you miserable creature, there's nothing for you but ruin." And then she would sit down opposite to me and grow sad, look into my face and weep. "Oh, you unlucky man, there is no pleasure for you in this world, and there will be none in the world to come. You drunkard, you will burn in hell. Oh, you unhappy one." And so she would carry on, in the strain. I can't tell you how much misery she suffered, how many tears she shed for my sake, but the chief thing was she used to chop the wood for me. Do you know, sir, that I did not chop one single stick of wood for you? She did it all. Why this saved me, why I changed, why I stopped drinking, and the sight of her I cannot explain. I only know that owing to her words and noble deeds, a change took place in my heart. She set me right, and I shall never forget it. However, it's time to go now. There goes the bell. Laksho bowed and departed to the gallery. Now, Laksho is saying that whenever he went to chop the woods, Olga would scold him, and she felt sad for him and she wept. And this man, he hadn't chopped a single wood for the Sergi, but instead it was the Sergi's cook Olga who chopped all those woods, and it was Olga's kind-heartedness or Olga's performance that transformed this man. And saying so, like when he said these words, the bell rang, and Lakshov, he bowed to the Sergi, and they left for the gallery of the theatre.